I stood in the hallway. The carpet was that industrial gray you find in luxury downtown lofts that try too hard to look gritty. My suitcase, a hard-shell Rimowa that weighed 50 pounds, was sitting next to my ankle. I didn't blink. I couldn't. The door, my door, the one I had painted a matte charcoal 3 months ago, was closed. But the image of what I had just seen was burned into my retinas like a sunspot. Jared, leaning against the doorframe, holding a craft beer. And her. I didn't know her name yet. I just knew the robe. It was pure mulberry silk. I bought it in Kyoto 3 years ago on a solo trip I took because Jared couldn't get the time off from his unemployment. It shimmered under the hallway track lighting. She had it tied loosely, carelessly. The sash was knotted wrong. "It's just not working, babe," Jared had said. He didn't even look angry. He looked bored. He looked like he was explaining why he wanted tacos instead of pizza. "Crystal here. She just gets the vision. The crypto market is volatile right now and your energy? It's too heavy. It's blocking my manifestations." Crystal. Her name was Crystal. Of course it was. "Jared," I had said. My voice was small. Not weak, just stunned. "I live here." "Technically," he said, taking a sip of the beer. My beer. A limited run stout I had been saving for my promotion. "But spiritually, you've been checked out. I need a fresh vibe to really launch the AlphaCoin project. And Crystal brings the vibes. Since I found this place, I'm asserting my domain. You can grab the rest of your stuff later. Just give us the weekend." Then he closed the door. The deadbolt slid home with a heavy metallic thud. I stared at the wood grain. I had been gone for 4 days. 4 days in Chicago, closing a merger that would secure my bonus for the year. A bonus I had planned to use to pay off the credit card Jared had maxed out buying mining rigs that were currently collecting dust in the guest room. I was exhausted. My feet throbbed in my heels. I smelled like airport coffee and recycled air. I reached out and touched the door. It was locked. He had actually locked me out. My brain was trying to process the logic. It was like trying to run high-end software on a toaster. He found the place. That was his argument. Yes. He found it. He sent me the Zillow link 2 years ago. I filled out the application. I provided the proof of income. I paid the deposit. I paid the broker fee. I paid the first month, the last month, and the security. I set up the Con Ed account. I set up the Wi-Fi. Jared had contributed exactly $0.00 to the acquisition of Unit 4B. But because he found the link in his warped, narcissistic reality, he was the lord of the manor. I took a deep breath. The air in the hallway smelled like ozone and someone's burnt popcorn. I didn't scream. I didn't pound on the door. I didn't beg. A strange, cold sensation washed over me. It started at the base of my neck and spread down to my fingertips. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't even anger. It was clarity. It was the feeling of a spreadsheet finally balancing after hours of errors. I pulled my phone out of my purse. 6:01 p.m. I scrolled down to my contacts. I didn't call the police. Not yet. That was too messy and honestly, too quick. I called Tony. Tony was the building superintendent. He was a 50-year-old guy from Queens who had seen everything and impressed by nothing. We had a bond. I brought him coffee on Tuesday mornings. I helped him format his daughter's college application essay last fall. And, crucial to this moment, Tony hated Jared. He hated how Jared never broke down his cardboard boxes before shoving them down the trash chute. He hated how Jared parked his leased BMW, which I made the payments on, crookedly in the garage. Tony picked up on the second ring. "Unit 4B, Tony said. His voice was gravel. "Everything okay? I saw you come in with the suitcase." "Hey, Tony," I said. My voice was terrifyingly steady. "I'm in the hallway. Jared just locked me out." "He what?" "He locked me out. He has a guest. He says I have bad vibes." There was a silence on the line. Then a heavy sigh. "You want me to bring the master key? I can pop that lock in 3 seconds. I've been waiting for an excuse to have a conversation with that kid about the recycling bins." "No," I said. "Not yet. I don't want to go back in there right now." I looked at the door. If I went in there, I would scream. If I screamed, I would look crazy. Crystal would look at me with pity. Jared would pull out his phone and record me calling me hysterical for his 300 TikTok followers. I refused to be content. "Tony," I said. "Is he listed on the lease?" I knew the answer. But I needed to hear it out loud. I needed the external validation. You know he isn't, Tony said. I ran the credit check myself. His score started with a 4. You didn't want him as a co-signer because you didn't want the liability. He's listed as an authorized occupant. That's it. And what are the privileges of an authorized occupant? I asked. They got key fob access. They can pick up packages. That's about it. They have no tenancy rights unless they've been contributing to rent, and we both know the checks come from your Chase Sapphire account. Great, I said. Tony, I need a favor. A big one. Name it. I need you to revoke his fob access. Right now. And delete his code for the front door. Done, Tony said. I could hear the clicking of a keyboard in the background. He was in the management office downstairs. What about the girl? I saw a blonde come in with him around 3. Revoke the guest pass too. If they leave the unit, they don't get back into the building. And Tony? Yeah. Cut the power to Unit 4B. Tony paused. Now legally I can't do that for a tenant. Landlord-tenant laws, you know? Constructive eviction. I'm the tenant, Tony, I said softly. I'm authorizing a maintenance check. I think I smell gas. Or maybe I saw a spark from the breaker box. I need you to cut the main breaker for safety until I can get a licensed electrician out there. Which might take all weekend. I could hear the smile in Tony's voice. It was a dry, rusty sound. Safety first, Tony said. I'll kill the breaker from the basement panel in 2 minutes. You going to a hotel? Yeah. The Marriott down the street. I'm going to grab a drink. I'll text you when I'm safe. You're a saint, Tony said. I would have thrown him off the balcony by now. The night is young, I whispered. I hung up. I grabbed the handle of my Rimowa. I turned my back on my apartment, on my silk robe, on the man I had supported for 3 years. I walked to the elevator. I pressed the button. Inside the elevator, the mirrored walls reflected a woman who looked shattered. My eyeliner was smudged. My hair was frizzy. But my eyes were hard. I took out my phone again. I opened my banking app. It was time to review the ledger. If Jared wanted to talk about investment, I was going to show him the ROI of our relationship. I sat in the lobby of the Marriott 10 minutes later. I ordered a double martini extra dirty. I opened my laptop. I created a new spreadsheet. I named it Project Eviction. Row 1, rent. 3 years. $3,200 a month. That was $115,200. Jared's contribution, $0. Row 2, utilities. Internet, gigabit speed for his gaming, $120 per month. Electricity, mining rigs running 24/7, $400 per month. Total, approximate $18,000. Jared's contribution, $0. Row 3, the car. His image vehicle. The lease was in my name because, again, credit score. $650 per month. Plus insurance. Total, $23,400. Row 4, the loans. This was the one that made my stomach turn. The times he begged. The liquidity issues. The bridge loans until his investments matured. Babe, I just need $5,000 for the server cost. I'll pay you back next week. Babe, I need $2,000 for the engagement ring fund. I'm saving it in a separate account. There was no ring. There was never a ring. I tallied it up. The groceries. The trips. The clothes he wore to look successful. The grand total sat at the bottom of the screen, blinking in bold black text. $186,500. That was the cost of his vibe. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Jared. Jared, 6:22 p.m. Hey, don't be dramatic. Just stay at your mom's or something. We can talk Monday. Also, did you change the Netflix password? It's not loading. I stared at the screen. The audacity was almost impressive. It was architectural in its scale. He didn't know the power was out yet. The TV probably just shut off and he assumed it was the internet. I didn't reply. The first rule of dealing with a parasite is you do not feed it. Not money. Not attention. Not emotion. I took a sip of my martini. It burned cold and sharp. I was about to enter Act 2. I needed to be an actress. I needed to be the confused, heartbroken girlfriend. I needed him to feel safe. I needed him to step out of the apartment. I typed a response. I deleted it. I typed another one. I needed the tone to be pathetic. I needed him to think he had broken me. If he thought I was angry, he would dig in. He would barricade himself. He would destroy my property. But if he thought I was sad, if he thought I was pleading, his ego would inflate. He would get careless. Me 6:28 p.m. Jared, I'm crying in the lobby. I don't understand. I just want to talk. Please. I bought us dinner. Can't we just talk? I wasn't crying. I was eating the olives from my martini and checking the battery life on the hallway camera I had installed 6 months ago to check on my Amazon packages. I pulled up the camera feed on my phone. The hallway was quiet. The door to 4B was dark. His reply came instantly. Jared, 6:29 p.m. You're suffocating me. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Oh. Go away. Leave the food at the door if you want, but don't knock. Leave the food at the door. He wanted me to feed him while he cheated on me in my house. Okay, I whispered to the empty hotel bar. Okay, Jared. I switched apps to the Ring camera feed again. Suddenly, the door to 4B opened. Jared stepped out into the hallway. The hallway lights were on. They were powered by the building's emergency circuit. But behind him, the apartment was pitch black. He was holding his phone up, waving it around. He was looking for a signal. Or maybe wondering why the Wi-Fi dropped. Babe. I heard him yell into the dark apartment. The lights are out here too. It must be the whole block. I watched on my screen as Crystal stepped out. She was still wearing my robe. She was holding a lit candle. My diptyque candle. The beige scent. That was an $80 candle. It's so dark, she whined. And the AC stopped. It's getting hot. It's the grid, Jared said, sounding authoritative. Probably a solar flare affecting the crypto nodes. It happens. He was so stupid. It was breathtaking. Let's go get sushi, Crystal said. We can come back when the lights are on. Yeah, Jared said. Let's bounce. My girl, my ex. She said she left food, but I don't see it. He looked down the hallway. Whatever, he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his keys. He locked the deadbolt. Then he pulled out the fob. The little gray plastic square that gave him access to the elevator, the gym, the roof, and the front door. He held it up. Let's go. They walked toward the elevator. I watched them on the grainy video feed until they rounded the corner. My heart was hammering against my ribs. This was it. The trap was set. They were leaving the unit. They were leaving the floor. They were leaving the building. Once that front door clicked shut behind them, the fob was just a piece of plastic. Tony had wiped it. They were ghosted. I waited 5 minutes. I needed to be sure they were gone. Then I stood up. I paid my tab. Keep the change, I told the bartender. I walked out of the Marriott and down the block. It was a nice night. The air was crisp. I could smell the exhaust of the city and the faint scent of roasted nuts from a street cart. I walked to my building. I used my fob. It beeped cheerfully. Green light. The heavy glass door slid open. I walked to the front desk. The night concierge Marcus was there. He looked up and smiled. Welcome back, Miss Davis. Good trip. Long, I said. Marcus, has Jared left? Just walked out, Marcus said. With a guest. He looked agitated. If he comes back, I said, leaning over the desk, do not let him up. His fob has been deactivated by Tony. He is no longer a resident. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Trouble. He's trespassing, I said. If he tries to force his way in, call the police immediately. Do not call me. Call 911. Marcus nodded slowly. Understood. I'll put a note in the system. I walked to the elevator. I rode it up to the 4th floor. The hallway was empty. I walked to my door. I unlocked the deadbolt. I opened the door. The apartment was silent. It was hot. The AC had been off for an hour. It smelled like his cheap cologne and her vanilla vape juice. I flipped the light switch. Nothing. Right. The breaker. I used my phone flashlight to navigate to the kitchen. I found the main panel behind the painting in the hallway. I flipped the main breaker back on. The fridge kicked on. The microwave beeped. The lights flooded the space. I looked around. It was a disaster. There were pizza boxes on the Restoration Hardware couch. There were beer bottles on the floor. And there, draped over the armchair, was the robe. She had left it. Thank God. I picked it up. It smelled like them. I walked to the trash chute in the hallway and threw it down. I couldn't wash that out. I went back inside. I locked the door. I engaged the deadbolt. I engaged the secondary chain lock I had installed myself. Then I sat down on the couch. I waited. It took 45 minutes. Sushi dinner usually takes about an hour, but they must have realized something was wrong early on. My phone lit up. Jared, 7:45 p.m. My fob isn't working. Let me in. I didn't answer. Jared, 7:46 p.m. Hello? The front door won't open. The concierge is acting weird. Buzz me in. Jared, 7:50 p.m. Stop playing games. Crystal needs to use the bathroom. Let us in. I picked up the phone. I typed 7 words. You moved out. Remember? Fresh vibes. Then I put the phone on Do Not Disturb. The banging started 10 minutes later. He must have tailgated someone into the lobby. He got past the first layer of security. But he couldn't get up the elevator without a fob. So he was stuck in the lobby. I checked the lobby camera feed on the building app. It was a beautiful scene. High-definition justice. Jared was standing at the front desk, screaming at Marcus. His arms were waving wildly. He looked like a wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. Crystal was standing behind him looking less vibe-y and more annoyed. She was scrolling on her phone. I turned the volume up on the feed. Live here. Jared was shouting. My stuff is up there. You can't keep me from my property. Sir, Marcus said, his voice calm and professional. You are not on the lease. The leaseholder has removed your access. You need to leave the premises. I have rights. Jared yelled. Squatter's rights. I've been here for 2 years. Do you have mail addressed here? Marcus asked. Do you have a utility bill in your name? Jared faltered. She pays the bills. But I live there. Sir, without proof of residency or the leaseholder's permission, you are a guest. And your guest pass has been revoked. Jared grabbed the heavy marble countertop of the front desk. Call her. Call her right now. She has instructed us not to disturb her, Marcus said. Please leave or I will call the police. Jared pulled out his phone. He dialed me. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. I let it buzz. He dialed again. I let it buzz. Then he did something that sealed his fate. He jumped over the turnstile. He sprinted toward the elevators. Crystal hesitated, then stayed back. Jared mashed the call button. But the elevators in our building require a fob scan just to call the car. Nothing happened. He turned toward the fire stairs. The fire stairs are locked from the lobby side. You can exit, but you can't enter without a key. He slammed his shoulder against the door. It didn't budge. He turned back to the desk, his face red. Marcus was already on the phone. 911? Yes. I have an intruder in the lobby. He's aggressive. 400 West Main Street. I sat back on my couch. I opened a bag of chips I found in the pantry. I watched the screen. Jared was pacing now. He was trapping himself. He walked back to Crystal. She said something to him. He pointed a finger in her face. She recoiled. Then she turned around and walked out the front door. He left him. The fresh vibe walked out into the night, probably to call an Uber. Jared was alone. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I remembered the $186,000. I remembered the investment loans. I remembered the robe. The police arrived in 4 minutes. 2 officers. Uniformed. Big. They walked in. Marcus pointed at Jared. Jared immediately started doing the cool guy, hands. Palms up, non-threatening, trying to bro out with the cops. Officers, hey, huge misunderstanding, I heard him say through the camera. My girlfriend is just being crazy. You know how females get. She locked me out. I just need to get my laptop and my clothes. One of the officers, a woman with a tight bun and a face that tolerated zero nonsense, stepped forward. Sir, do you have ID with this address on it? My license is, well, it's at my mom's address still. For insurance reasons. But I live here. So you don't have ID for this address. Are you on the lease? It's a complicated situation. We're partners. Sir, the officer said. We need you to step outside. No. I'm not leaving without my stuff. I have thousands of dollars of crypto equipment up there. That was my cue. I couldn't just watch from the tower. I needed to deliver the death blow personally. I stood up. I smoothed my blazer. I checked my reflection in the mirror. I looked tired, yes. But I looked like the owner. I walked to the elevator. I scanned my fob. I went down to the lobby. When the elevator doors opened, everyone looked at me. Jared's face lit up with a mix of relief and fury. There she is. Tell them. Tell them I live here. I walked out of the elevator. My heels clicked on the marble floor. Hic, hic, hic. I stopped 10 feet away from him. Officers, I said. My voice was calm. I'm the resident of Unit 4B. This man is my ex-boyfriend. He has been staying with me as a guest. Today he became abusive and I asked him to leave. He refused. He is now trespassing. She's lying. Jared screamed. I pay rent. Well, I contribute. I handle the household. Officer, I said. I pulled a folded piece of paper from my purse. It was a copy of the lease I kept in my travel bag. Here is the lease. My name is the only one on it. The female officer took the paper. She scanned it. She nodded. And, I added, I have a restraining order application pending as of. I checked my watch. 20 minutes ago electronically. I had filled it out on the LegalZoom app in the hotel. It wasn't filed yet, but it sounded good. Jared, I said, looking him in the eye. You have 5 minutes to grab a bag. Officer, can you escort him up to retrieve his immediate essentials? Medicines and a change of clothes? The rest I will put in storage and he can arrange a pickup. That seems reasonable, the officer said. Sir, let's go. 5 minutes. You can't do this, Jared hissed. You're ruining my life. You ruined it yourself, I said. 3 years, Jared. And you couldn't even pay for the pizza. The walk back to the apartment was silent. The female officer walked between us. Jared was vibrating with rage. When we got to the door, I unlocked it. Do not touch anything except your clothes, I said. Jared stormed into the bedroom. He grabbed his duffel bag. He started shoving shirts into it. My mining rigs, he said. I'm taking the rigs. He ran to the guest room. He stopped in the doorway. Where are they? He yelled. The guest room was empty. Well, not empty. The desk was there. The chair was there. But the 6 computer towers? The mess of wires? The blinking lights that drove up my electric bill? Gone. Where are my rigs? He screamed, turning to me. Oh, I said, leaning against the doorframe. You mean the computers you bought with my credit card? They're mine. I built them. Technically, I said, mimicking his tone from earlier. You purchased the components on the Chase Sapphire, which is in my name. You never paid off the balance. So, legally they are my property. I sold them. You what? His voice cracked. I sold them. While you were at sushi. I listed them on Marketplace 3 days ago, actually anticipating this. My friend came and picked them up an hour ago while I was at the hotel. They're gone, Jared. The proceeds went to the principal balance of the card. This was a lie. They were in the trunk of my car in the parking garage. But he didn't know that. And right now I needed him to feel the loss. That's theft, he screamed. It's asset recovery, I corrected. Officer, he's becoming agitated. I'd like him removed now. The officer stepped forward. Her hand rested near her belt. Not on her gun but near the taser. Sir, you have your clothes. It's time to go. Jared looked at the empty spot where his empire used to be. He looked at me. For the first time in 3 years I saw the fear in his eyes. The realization. He had no money. He had no home. He had no vibes. He had no crypto farm. He was just a guy with a duffel bag and a bad haircut. You're a bitch, he spat. And you, I said, are homeless. Get out. He grabbed his bag. He marched to the door. He paused at the threshold. He looked back, maybe expecting me to crack. Maybe expecting me to say, wait, I love you. I just pointed at the hallway. He walked out. The officer followed him. I'll be back to check on you, ma'am, she said. Thank you, officer. She closed the door. I heard their footsteps fade down the hall. I heard the elevator ding. I stood in the center of my living room. Silence. Beautiful, expensive silence. I walked to the door. I threw the deadbolt. I latched the chain. Then I walked to the kitchen. I opened the fridge. I took out the craft stout he had been drinking earlier. I poured it down the sink. I went to my wine rack. I pulled out a bottle of Burlo. I poured a glass. I sat on my couch. I put my feet up on the coffee table, something he always hated. I opened my laptop again. I went to the spreadsheet. I added a new tab. Tab name, recovery. I typed in, sale of mining rigs, plus $4,500, estimated. Cancellation of car lease, pending. Mental health, priceless. The phone buzzed again. It wasn't Jared. It was a Venmo notification. From Jared's mom, $500. Note, he called me crying. I don't know what happened, but here is for the phone bill. Please don't hurt him. I stared at the screen. Even his mother was paying his way. I declined the payment. I wasn't a charity. And I certainly wasn't his keeper anymore. I took a sip of the wine. Tasted like oak and cherries in victory. The next morning I would call a locksmith to change the tumblers, just in case he had made a copy. I would call a cleaning service to deep clean the carpets. I would sell the car. But for tonight, I just sat in the dark watching the city lights through my floor-to-ceiling windows. Where are my rigs? He screamed, turning to me. Oh, I said, leaning against the doorframe. You mean the computers you bought with my credit card? They're mine. I built them. Technically, I said, mimicking his tone from earlier. You purchased the components on the Chase Sapphire, which is in my name. You never paid off the balance. So, legally they are my property. I sold them. You what? His voice cracked. I sold them. While you were at sushi. I listed them on Marketplace 3 days ago, actually anticipating this. My friend came and picked them up an hour ago while I was at the hotel. They're gone, Jared. The proceeds went to the principal balance of the card. This was a lie. They were in the trunk of my car in the parking garage. But he didn't know that. And right now I needed him to feel the loss. That's theft, he screamed. It's asset recovery, I corrected. Officer, he's becoming agitated. I'd like him removed now. The officer stepped forward. Her hand rested near her belt. Not on her gun but near the taser. Sir, you have your clothes. It's time to go. Jared looked at the empty spot where his empire used to be. He looked at me. For the first time in 3 years I saw the fear in his eyes. The realization. He had no money. He had no home. He had no vibes. He had no crypto farm. He was just a guy with a duffel bag and a bad haircut. You're a bitch, he spat. And you, I said, are homeless. Get out. He grabbed his bag. He marched to the door. He paused at the threshold. He looked back, maybe expecting me to crack. Maybe expecting me to say, wait, I love you. I just pointed at the hallway. He walked out. The officer followed him. I'll be back to check on you, ma'am, she said. Thank you, officer. She closed the door. I heard their footsteps fade down the hall. I heard the elevator ding. I stood in the center of my living room. Silence. Beautiful, expensive silence. I walked to the door. I threw the deadbolt. I latched the chain. Then I walked to the kitchen. I opened the fridge. I took out the craft stout he had been drinking earlier. I poured it down the sink. I went to my wine rack. I pulled out a bottle of Burlo. I poured a glass. I sat on my couch. I put my feet up on the coffee table, something he always hated. I opened my laptop again. I went to the spreadsheet. I added a new tab. Tab name, recovery. I typed in, sale of mining rigs, plus $4,500, estimated. Cancellation of car lease, pending. Mental health, priceless. The phone buzzed again. It wasn't Jared. It was a Venmo notification. From Jared's mom, $500. Note, he called me crying. I don't know what happened, but here is for the phone bill. Please don't hurt him. I stared at the screen. Even his mother was paying his way. I declined the payment. I wasn't a charity. And I certainly wasn't his keeper anymore. I took a sip of the wine. Tasted like oak and cherries in victory. The next morning I would call a locksmith to change the tumblers, just in case he had made a copy. I would call a cleaning service to deep clean the carpets. I would sell the car. But for tonight, I just sat in the dark watching the city lights through my floor-to-ceiling windows.